Yeah, if you're showing houses downtown Indianapolis this weekend, better get an Uber.
You're right. Why?
They got every other street shut down. It's the NCAA. All the Final Fours are happening
Oh yeah.
in town this weekend.
Nice.
So if you're showing a house downtown this weekend, you better get out your maps and find some alternate routes. It's gonna be tough showing houses down there.
I love it.
Yeah,
For all you home inspectors too, check your maps.
yeah, they're gonna be running around like crazy.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, it's that time of year.
that is that time of year.
Yeah,
But man, talking about inspections, let's talk about inspections today.
yeah.
Um, and contractors, and why is it that contractors and inspectors, they just don't seem to ever match up? Contractors, man, I don't think they like inspectors at all.
They don't. No. Every contractor will tell you the inspector doesn't know what they're doing, and
Yeah,
every inspector will tell you that the contractors, they're just there to try to get work. And there's a little truth, I think, to both. But I mean, so here's the thing about home inspections and home inspectors
yeah,
is they are there to do a visual inspection of the property. And they're not experts in everything.
yeah. They're jacks of all trades and masters of some.
Maybe one.
Maybe.
I mean, you might, there's quite a few home inspectors that are contractors, or they used to be contractors, got into the inspection world. But there's a lot of home inspectors out there that are really just your generous. I like to say the home inspector is like your general physician,
Yeah,
right? Like you're going to go in, they're going to give you a checkup, they find some things that are off or needs a second evaluation. They're going to recommend that you go to a qualified specialist. And you'll see that in a home inspection report quite a bit is recommend evaluation by a qualified contractor.
yeah. I say it's like they look you up and down and they say everything looks good, but you got a little something right here I don't usually see all that often, so I'm going to recommend you go see a specialist for it.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's them just covering their ass, or do you think that's them honestly saying that they need to have a specialist come in?
I think a little bit of both. I think you know, there's a lot of inspectors out there, and it's just like any industry. There's going to be some bad ones.
Yeah.
And in our market here in Indianapolis, luckily I haven't run into too many like really bad inspectors, but they're out there.
Oh, dude, I've had some bad inspectors. I mean, I was lucky for a long time because you were my home inspector. Seth was a home inspector for about 5 or 6 years and has inspected thousands of homes. And I got a little spoiled having you there because of your construction knowledge and our ability to communicate it. It made everything a little bit easier, a lot less stressful for the buyer. But, I've heard inspectors say, well, I wouldn't let my daughter live here.
Oh my gosh.
What?
That's crazy.
That is not
I
your
had a
job.
home inspector ask how much my client paid for the house. He's like, I would have never paid that.
What?
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of CYA, cover your ass, going on in the home inspection industry. And a lot of it has to do with, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, our society has become sue happy, for one. But there's also a lack of knowledge on the homeowner side of things when it comes to doing repairs. And so
Yeah.
that plays into it. But then I think there's this other third factor where people don't have the right expectation when it comes to what a home inspection actually is.
Yeah.
They think that they're hiring somebody to come in and they're paying them hundreds of dollars to tell them everything that's wrong with a home. We're human, okay? Until they make robot home inspectors, which I don't think they're going to have for a while. I might be wrong. They're not going to find everything,
Yeah.
And so the thing to keep in mind with you homeowners out there when you're getting a home inspection, it is a visual home inspection of the readily accessible components of the home.
Right.
That's a home inspection. So, if you're going into a home that has, let's say it's 20 years or older, There's going to be a lot of things that don't meet code. There's going to be a lot of things that the inspector just can't look at. They're not going to be looking at the heat exchanger, which is a big part of a furnace. A lot of times on an older furnace, that's the major component that can fail on it. Home inspectors aren't looking at that.
Right.
They're not going to be running a camera up your chimney and checking out the fireplace that way. Maybe some home inspection companies will do that, but the majority of them aren't doing that. So a tip to the homeowners out there and for you buyers representatives, if you're getting ready to do a home inspection on a home that has some components that are old, or it's an older home, you think you might need to have some other things looked at, go ahead and line those things up. If it looks like it's an older roof, set up an inspection with a roofing company the same time you're doing your home inspection. If it's an older home, and this is something I recommend on pretty much any home, the sewer line.
Oh,
right?
Got to.
Not very many inspection companies are inspecting the sewer line. Some will, and it's an ancillary service. It's an additional cost. But if you're, looking at an older home, you got to have that looked at. And, 9 times out of 10, you need to bring in a third party to do that. So
Yeah.
the inspectors aren't looking at everything, and they're not catching everything. And it's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible, to take a home and take it through its full living paces through all the seasons. To try to do that in like 2 hours is impossible. Mm-hmm. And so, it's pretty common that, I had one where the roof was covered in snow, and my client bought this house, and it was a few months later that all of a sudden we had a big rainstorm come through and he had a leak, and, was wondering why it wasn't caught at the inspection. Now, if you had a leak for a while, there's obvious signs that it's leaking. Yeah. So I think this one was kind of a newer leak that sprung up and, felt like the inspector maybe should have caught it. But the kind of the frustrating part of that one is when the contractor, the roofing contractor showed up, he said, "Oh my God, the inspector should have caught this. I mean, this is 101 sort of stuff," and just totally threw the inspector under the bus when he didn't realize the conditions that day that we were dealing with when we were trying to do the home inspection.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the contractor trying to make sure that he gets the job by saying, "Oh my gosh, this should have been caught," and just scare tactics and into getting him to work. But I don't necessarily think that that's what that contractor was doing. I think that he thought that somebody should have caught it if they had the knowledge that he had. But a contractor out there, a lot of contractors will like to throw the inspectors under the bus.
Well, yeah, it's an opportunity for them to establish dominance and show their expertise. Yeah. And, what better way to do that than, that licensed person that you hired, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Home inspectors are licensed. They have to go to continuing education every year. There's a lot of things that they got to do to keep up on their license. Contractors, they don't have to be licensed. The only contractor in the state of Indiana, and I don't know all the other states, but in Indiana, the only contractor that has to be licensed is a plumber.
Really?
Yep. So typically you're going to find your electricians, your plumbers,
yeah,
they're going to be licensed. The other license that a contractor can have is a general contractor's license. They don't have to have that. There's a lot of guys out there that have a truck and some tools, and they're running around town doing repairs. And I don't know how many times I've heard the story of, I had this guy come out, seemed like a great guy, gave me a quote, never heard from him again. Can't find him online.
No.
And
he's gone.
He's gone. So, there's not a lot of regulations, I think, in the contracting industry. I mean, you could have a guy that's, been a floor guy forever, working for some company, and decides he wants to be a painter. He's got the work truck. He's got the paintbrushes. He can go out and start a painting business.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a license to do some of these things. So,
right. Yeah.
It's always take what they're saying, what a contractor's saying with a grain of salt. They are there to try to get some business. I've never had a contractor walk through a house and go, "No, it all looks fine. I think you're good."
No, yeah.
Never.
No.
Yeah.
They're there to get the work. Well, if you guys find any of this stuff helpful, like and subscribe. This is what we're all about is helping homeowners and buyers and agents understand the game a little bit and understand real estate. And, with contractors, especially like the general contractors that are out there, they are familiar with a lot of the stuff that's going on in today's world. You get the licensed plumber that's fresh, green. He's got all the knowledge in the world, but sometimes they are so stuck on today's code, right? Mm-hmm. That sometimes it affects, I think, their ability to have the communication with the agent or with the buyer who's buying the house. In Indianapolis, a lot of these houses were built in the 20s to 1970s. Yeah. We don't have a lot of new construction, which is where codes are coming into play. In an old 1920s house where it's 120-something years old or 100-something years old, none of that stuff is going to be up to today's code unless it's been updated.
Yeah.
Fireplaces never are up to code.
Yeah.
So as a home inspector, what are your thoughts as a former home inspector, Seth? What are your thoughts on codes? And should inspectors even be talking about codes?
I mean, there's some code things, but a home inspector is not a code inspector. There are actually code inspectors out there.
Yeah.
They work for the city. They mainly are doing rehabs and new construction, and that's their forte. But a home inspector should not be coming in telling you all the code issues. One, code changes all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's covered in continuing education for a home inspector. Now, you might find a home inspector that is really knowledgeable about code and does keep up on those things. But when it comes to having the home inspection, there's going to be some things that get called out as a code thing. But they should, in my opinion, a home inspector should never be putting in, this is a code violation in your home inspection report.
The C word.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to use the C word as a home inspector.
Yeah. I mean, it's the purpose of the home inspection is not to bring a home up to code.
Yeah.
That's not why you do a home inspection. So I think they should never say the code word. Now, if you are asked by a client, what is the code, and you happen to know, throw that out there. If you're the home inspector and you know what that code is, it's like the standard code thing, and this is something that comes up on almost every home inspection, is the GFCI outlet. Or for the old school people, the GFI. It has to be, any outlet within 6 feet of water has to be GFI or GFCI protected. That is a code thing.
Yeah.
But it's also a safety issue, right? Yeah. So go ahead and put that in there if you're a home inspector. Handrails, the reason why handrails get called out on, especially for FHA financing, if you've got 3 steps or more and it doesn't have a handrail, it will most likely get called out by an appraiser. Mm-hmm. But the inspector is going to call that out too. It is a safety issue. It's also a code issue. But they need to put that in there as a safety thing and not say this needs to be brought up to code.
Well, things change all the time. Like, the one thing that I love pointing out on these older bungalows in Broad Ripple is what used to be a safety feature is now a safety issue and is a code violation. So it's the back door. We've seen this. If you've been an agent long enough and sold older homes, you see this. It's the outside door. It's got the window panes. And on the inside, it's got the deadbolt lock for the key. Well, that was a safety feature back in the day. So that
it was a
security feature back in the day. So back in the day, before you went to bed, you pulled the key out of the deadbolt. Mm-hmm. So if somebody broke the glass to try to reach inside and unlock it, they would actually have to have the key to be able to open up that door and break in and do whatever they were intending on doing. Yeah. So it was now it's a
safety issue.
Yeah. Because if you were running out that door and the house was on fire and for some reason you didn't have the key in that deadbolt, how do you get out?
Yeah.
So it's funny how things have changed.
Yeah. Things change all the time. That's why it's really important to get, I think, an inspector that's been around the block, has seen it all. And it's also really important why you want to get a contractor that understands what's going on with the home. If you got a contractor that specializes in doors and windows, you might not want to have them come do your plumbing, right?
Yeah.
So, vet your contractors. It's always worth maybe looking into other home inspection companies. But I think it's important for agents out there to have a good relationship with your home inspectors and have a good relationship with your contractors, so that you can give them guidance as to what your clients are really needing. And I think it helps with just the communication of things.
Yeah.
Do you go to the home inspections?
I try my best to go to all the home inspections. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you should be there at the home inspection. I mean, I've heard from other agents and even lawyers that we shouldn't go there
I've heard that too, and
because it's a liability.
Yeah, I don't really.
I think it's just agents that don't know what they're
that.
talking about, saying something that's conflicting with what everybody else is saying, and then now you're the responsible person because you said either it wasn't a big deal or that it was a big deal.
I think it could be a liability if you, as the agent, are standing there talking to the home inspector about the report, and they say some things that should be questions, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about homes, and so you don't ask those questions.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a liability, but that's because that agent doesn't know anything about homes.
Right.
They don't understand maybe something that's critical that is brought up on a home inspection.
Well, yeah, they start talking about an item, and if you're not familiar with some of this stuff, you're going to assume that it's going to cost way more than what it really is.
Yeah.
Agents, buyers, sellers, they all go, "Oh my God, what are we looking at here? A $10,000 fix?" I'm like, "No, it's flashing. It's about $750.
Yeah.
It's not you don't have to redo the entire roof."
Yeah.
So when it comes to inspections, and I think looking at certain things as a negotiation edge, I think there's certain things you get that's kind of obvious, right? Like if you said something about FHA financing, FHA financing and VA financing, they don't like peeling paint. Mm-hmm. So if you show up to the home, I mean, there's certain things that's just very obvious when you're looking at the house.
Yeah.
Don't wait till the home inspection to try to get the seller to do something about it. If you got an FHA buyer and you know that the appraiser is going to come out and just totally ding it for all this peeling paint, put it in your offer. I know that right now the market is still a little bit competitive for buyers, and so you want to make your offer as sweet as possible. But I had this once where, on paper it looked great. Photos looked great. They just had a filter or something on it, and when we showed up, the entire house had wood siding, and it all was peeling. All of it needed to be scraped and painted. And so rather than going and hoping that we're going to be able to get the seller to do this and fix something or address it, at the inspection when we respond, I wrote it into the offer, and sellers agreed to it. Got the house scraped and painted before the appraiser was out there, and we were all good. But you see like broken windows, or if you see, concrete sidewalk where you've got a 3-inch lip, it's a total trip hazard, and you know that that's going to be an issue for you. Don't wait till the inspection. Ask for it up front, or at least have that conversation before you make your offer. Don't just expect that you're going to be able to negotiate a ton of stuff at the inspection.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point. It's the market is still competitive in certain areas, and so you want to make your offer as sweet as possible. But it's always a good idea to try to get ahead of that stuff as soon as possible, and it makes your inspection response, that whole process, so much easier. The thing that I keep seeing that drives me nuts is when I get an inspection response, and the buyer's agent puts in there, have this. Oh, yeah. They just copy and paste the inspector's dialogue. It's like, have it evaluated by a qualified contractor. That's what they put in their inspection response.
Yeah. Ask the seller what the reasoning was for that repair.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's fine, but like if in your inspection response, you put in, have this thing evaluated. Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have somebody look at it today.
It's evaluated.
Check.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Agents.
Yeah. Don't copy and paste. Be able to articulate what you are looking for. And a lot of times too, if you're too vague, the sellers will, they'll agree to it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you're 2 days away from closing and realize, well, the thing that you were really concerned about wasn't even touched.
Right.
Just because you didn't explain it, where it was at in the report, and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
So you got to be really, I think, calculated on how you're putting together your inspection response so that you're making sure that you're actually getting the things addressed that are concerns.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you got to have a conversation with your buyer client and figure out what is it that they want, and then go ask for that. If the roof has a bunch of damage and it's an older roof and the inspector said it's 20 years old, ask for it to get replaced. Don't ask for it to be evaluated by a contractor.
Or being very specific on what you're asking for. So, like when I'm asking for a brand new air conditioner, I don't just say seller to put in a brand new air conditioner, or sometimes seller to repair or replace the air conditioner. You can replace an air conditioner with an air conditioner that's not new.
That's true.
You can replace the air conditioner wrong size. So I always put in there with either the same model or better, or same size or better, or same whatever or better, and be very specific, because you know what the seller's going to do.
Oh yeah,
They're going to go get the cheapest thing that they can find, slap in there, and say, "Yeah, but put in something new for you."
I know,
and it'll never get the job done.
Well, and a little advice for the buyer's agents out there that are writing inspection responses. This is some language that we got from David Jesse, who's our manager. He's been doing this for, I think, 120 years or something like that.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing this a long time. After you put your inspection response together, the last line should say, all work to be done by a contractor that's mutually agreed upon by both buyer and seller.
Yeah.
Write that down. Now, I have put that in there and had agents come back to me going, whoa, what is this language?
Yeah.
But you gotta put something in there that's like that to make sure that the seller's not doing it on the weekend with his cousin over some beers.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that this contractor that's doing that work is legit. And so I think that is a really good way to handle the inspection responses. Don't be too vague, and make sure you put some language in there that ensures that all the work is going to be done by a qualified contractor.
Yeah. I think going back to the point of should an agent show up to the inspection, I think if you're a brand new agent, you should go to every single one that you can. Get there early before your clients show up.
Yeah.
And talk to the inspector and learn about some of these components of a home that you may not know much about, so that you can have these educated conversations with your client about the inspection afterwards. Or also be able to talk to the contractor. Mm-hmm. If you just talk about, you can totally misphrase something, and contractors can go out there and totally repair the wrong thing.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to know what you're talking about. You got to understand what a dormer is and what fascia is, and what's the difference between a fascia and a gutter back and a rake board. They're all the same thing.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Right? So if you're telling your contractor that you want them to replace some of that fascia, he may not exactly know what you're talking about. Yeah. So you got to be versed in all these components of the home to have the conversations with the inspector, with the contractor, and with your client.
Yeah. That's the best. Yeah, you nailed it. I think, especially for new agents, go to every home inspection that you can. You're going to learn a ton. Talk to as many contractors as you can. Find a contractor and a home inspector that you like and take them out to lunch.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Great idea.
Pick their brain. That's, I feel like, really part of our job as agents is to really understand what we're selling, understand the product, because it does two things. It makes you look good in front of your clients, and it makes this whole process so much easier when you understand the language that everybody's throwing out there.
And especially, the history of homes and being able to walk through an older home. And, I get this a lot where we're in an old basement. What are those two pipes sticking out of the wall? Like, shouldn't that be capped off? Or like, what's the deal with that? That's where the old oil tank used to be. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
I was like, this house was built in 1920. It was at one point probably heated with coal, and then flipped over to heated with oil.
Yeah.
So knowing the history and even what some of the things were back in the day, I think is important, because inspectors are going to call that out.
Yeah. And is it a big deal? No.
Probably not.
No.
Well, I think even if you don't know a whole lot about houses and you're an agent, setting the right expectation with your clients up front, having that conversation with them, and just like Seth said, explain to them that this is a visual inspection, and explain to them that these inspectors are jacks of all trades and masters of maybe one or two or some, right? But I also think setting the expectation that we're going to find something. We are paying this home inspector to go find as many different things as we can. Yeah. And I don't care if it's a brand new construction home, there is always something that comes up. There are some great builders out there. Love working with all my builder rep contacts out there. But people, we're human, we're imperfect, and homes are built with imperfect materials. There's always going to be something that comes up.
Yeah.
Even on new construction homes, still go get your own independent third-party inspection.
Yeah.
And you'll find that there's always something. So if you tell your buyers this,
yeah.
right? Buyers, there's going to be something that's going to come up on this house. It's going to make them feel a little bit better because deep down, all buyers are nervous and they're kind of hoping, I hope nothing comes up. And a lot of them, what's weird is they think, well, did it pass?
Yeah, did it pass inspection?
Well,
there's no pass or fail.
There's no pass or fail. That's not really the point of it.
Yeah. I mean, I lost track, probably around 2,300 home inspections. There was one home that I found that had 2 issues, and that was it. And it was, one of them was the outdoor spigot didn't work. Well, they just had the water shut off, but nobody knew where the shutoff valve was because it was drywalled over, and the builder had to go cut access to it. And then I don't even remember what the other one was. So out of 2,300 home inspections that I've done, I've never found a home that didn't have any issues.
Yeah, open knockouts probably.
Yeah, probably something. I did a new construction home once. It was like 3 days before they were closing on it. I popped my head up in the attic, no insulation.
Huh.
They just were going too fast and
they
forgot to do the insulation. So always get a home inspection. Never waive the home inspection. If anybody out there needs a recommendation for a home inspector here in Indianapolis, we've got some great ones that we work with. And yeah, keep watching these. We're going to do a lot more talking about construction and inspections and contractors and all that stuff.
Yeah, and hit the like and subscribe down below, and you'll get that little notification when we've got more of these videos that are coming up. And if you've got questions and you need any resources, you can email us at info@catronproperty.com. We're happy to hook you up with some good inspectors and some good contractors, and even ones that will actually talk to each other and be on the same page.
Yeah.
We know some of the good ones that are out there.
Yep.